eThekwini Municipality water woes seem to be getting worse, with residents in Verulam blaming the death of a man on the crisis. 53-year-old Junaid Anand Naidu reportedly suffered a fatal heart attack while attempting to carry a bucket of water from a borehole at a primary school. Democratic Alliance KwaZulu-Natal Premier candidate Chris Pappas joins us for more. Chris, good to speak to you. Most unfortunate incident which has been blamed on the eThekwini Municipality. Your thoughts?
Yes, very, very unfortunate, preventable but unfortunate, and not the first one. We visited the family on Friday afternoon to hear firsthand what had actually taken place. It was quite a sad situation. The family is actually celebrating Ramadan at the moment, so it was, you know, in the midst of this really important time, they've lost the breadwinner at home and lost a father and a loved one. But really, really avoidable. You know, the sad part about being there as well is that we learnt about 2 other deaths that could possibly be linked to water-related issues. So this seems to be spiraling. It seems to be getting worse. We know that a couple of weeks ago, Ms. Shonsile Ngcele also lost her life with a stray bullet when people were fighting over a water tank at a Jojo tank in Durban as well. So it just seems to be getting worse in Durban when it comes to talking about water.
Now, Chris, you cannot possibly isolate this very, very unfortunate incident of this individual who lost his life following that heart attack. But when you talk about 240 days without water or running water, then obviously it becomes an issue.
Yes, of course. I mean, one would argue that, you know, how can you link the heart attack to water? But what we learned when we were there is that it's actually been, in fact, 300 days that they indicated. 300 days where, I mean, the routine that they explained is that he'd wake up for prayers, he would then go to collect water, come home, go to work, come back again, collect water, have prayers, and then get on with his evening life. I mean, that's the life that people are now living in Durban. And when you're carrying 15 to 20 buckets, you know, 50-litre buckets every day, that becomes a real strain on your body after a long day's work and all the other things that you have to do. So you can't dispel that it could be linked, and the family is adamant that he was a healthy person. He never drank, he never smoked, and he lived a healthy life. Perhaps maybe while I'm at it, and one of the other people, a relatively next-door neighbor to Mr. Naidu, also collecting water from a water tanker, slipped and fell and knocked her head and passed away from that. So there's a number of incidents that have been linked to what is really unnecessary. The infrastructure is in the ground, pipes are there. Why is the water not flowing into people's homes?
Now, Chris, given the risks residents face when fetching water from boreholes, including the potential for robberies and hijackings, as mentioned by Junaid Naidu's brother, what measures does the DA propose to ensure the safety of residents accessing water sources during this crisis?
Perhaps before I get to that, I just, you know, listening to the family speak, there's a number of crises that we face, and it is sad to put them all together. So the story firstly involved a gentleman who's got pipes in his home having to go and collect water for over 300 days. It points to an issue of water. He then said that we can't carry our cell phones there because it's a crime hotspot. People are often mugged there. It points to another crime issue. They didn't even phone the provincial ambulance service because they said it would have been a waste of time. The ambulance would have come, which points then to a crisis in our healthcare. So everywhere you go, our residents and our citizens of KZN are facing these incredible threats to life and to limb because of a failure of government. But maybe let me get to some of the solutions. So as we sit here now, eThekwini faces about a 6-year backlog in water. 3 years is caused by a lack of planning. In other words, there's just not enough water in the province of KZN to supply the greater Durban area. And 3 years is basically the water that is lost through leaks and poor maintenance. The city of Durban, or eThekwini, leads when it comes to the loss of water. It sits at 58% of the water that they buy from Umgeni Utugela water is lost through their pipes. That's by far the largest amount of any metro in the country. Comparatively, Cape Town loses around 29%. So what that equates to is around about 7.6 billion rand every year that municipality loses in revenue, or about 155 million rand a month. Now, these are staggering numbers that we're talking about. All of which are avoidable. Now, we shouldn't have people going to boreholes and to tankers if this money had been used over time to repair the infrastructure, maintain it, and ensure that there weren't leaks and that we had built the necessary infrastructure for the future. But going forward, we already have a case in court against the municipality. We'll be adding this particular incident to that case. And we have also, a couple of weeks ago, we've also opened a report with the Human Rights Commission, because as you can see, this is really deteriorating to a point where people are now losing their lives, both in terms of water, but are also facing huge health risks in terms of the sanitation issues that the city faces.
So beyond the immediate tragedy of Junaid Naidu's death, what else is the DA looking to do or strategies are you employing to address the broader health and social impacts of the water crisis on families like the Naidus and the wider community?
Sure, thank you. So firstly, what we're calling for is the establishment of a provincial infrastructure agency. What that will do is help to pool resources. As we know at the moment, we have various different levels of water management, whether it's department at a national level, the water service authorities, or the agencies like your Utugela Ungeni Water. And between all of those different agencies and the municipality, there's a lot of resources that are lost because of inefficiencies. So we're calling for the pooling of those resources under a provincial infrastructure agency so that we stop seeing the wastage and then a better management of the water resources from that particular point. What we're also asking for is the better use or the more use of the private sector in water management. When you look at KwaZulu-Natal, one of the better managed water systems in our province happens around the Belito area. That's the Kwadukuza municipality. And that is because it's managed through a public-private partnership, a concession with Caesar Water. And it sees some of the best water management in our province. So where there is a private sector involvement and where there is a pooling of resources for efficiency, you see a better management of the water resources. And then lastly, what we would like to see happen is for less money to be spent on water tankers. As we see, the city spent over 130 million rand buying water tankers not so long ago. That money should instead be used to reduce the number of leaks and improve infrastructure. It really isn't rocket science. It involves digging a hole, replacing a pipe, covering it up, and making sure that water is in the taps. We don't need incredibly complicated solutions to this problem that we face.
Chris, you raise an issue around not needing, it's not rocket science, some of the stuff that needs to be done. So whether it's maintenance, for instance, or repairing burst pipes or planning for the future, it's all very, very simple for most people. But the issue is capacity within the municipality. Many conversations that we've had to speak to a municipality that has many individuals that have no capacity to deal with these issues. Should you be the man in charge? How do you intend to balance that equation?
Absolutely, you are right. So I think more so at a senior management level, you have individuals who've been in charge for a very, very long time in that city who have slowly, or not slowly, actually quite rapidly seen a decline in the state of water and sanitation related infrastructure. Just an example, the tariff increases in the city of Durban, I think now are the highest when it comes to water and sanitation out of all the metros, at about 14.9%, whereas the city of Cape Town is around 6 or 7%. So more than double another metro of a similar size. And what this money is being used for is to cover up the losses. But what you don't see is anyone losing their job. Mr. Ednick Msweli, the head of water, has been there for many, many years, as well as the senior managers around him. Yet there's no accountability. So while you have a lot of very good artisans in and around the city, many of them are not given opportunities within the city itself, and many people at a senior level are not qualified or have lost interest in making the system work. The city of Cape Town offered Durban not so long ago. They said, let us send some of our engineers to help you. We've dealt with day zero. We've had our own water issues here, and we've managed to get through that, with proper planning and implementation. So should I be the man in charge? The first thing is to put that entire city under administration. It's not just water that's become a problem. There's waste issues, there's electricity issues, there's a number of issues in that city. To place it immediately under administration, not like we see now. I owe no allegiance to Mayor Kawunda or the ANC EFF in that particular city. Place it under administration and start to deploy real teams of administrators who are not political deployees but are qualified and experienced public officials in the areas of engineering in particular.
Now, you've talked about a 6-year backlog, Chris. I don't know if this takes into account the damage to infrastructure caused by the floods that unfortunately have hit KZN. So let's talk about infrastructure, because that's a conversation across the entire country where infrastructure has not been upgraded to cater for the growing numbers.
Yeah, I mean, there's two issues. There's upgrading and there's maintenance. So as we expand as populations in urban areas, as people move from rural to urban areas, we need to cater for that. And that's called future-proofing your city. In other words, thinking ahead to solve those problems. But then there's also the general maintenance issues, the infrastructure that's in the ground. And what we've seen is that over a number of years, there's been more of a focus on building new infrastructure that doesn't relate to critical service delivery, whether it's electricity or water and sanitation. But more of an emphasis on building new nice-to-haves, whether it's stadiums or halls or things that don't add value in the long term to our communities, as well as spending money on really nonsense-type programs like the tents that they put up everywhere and the visors that they have that cost hundreds of millions of rands. But then also, maybe just to use a practical example, the Western Cape knew they have a water issue. They're a very water-scarce province. So what they've done since the day zero incidents is invest a lot of money into infrastructure. The city of Cape Town itself is spending over 12 billion rand in water sanitation infrastructure. And what that does, I think it's more than double what Johannesburg and Durban are spending, which is quite incredible considering the size of those metros. But what that does, it helps to say, well, we have people moving to the city, we need to cater for them. We have people who are growing, we need to cater for them. Durban has failed to do that. Durban is now charging residents more for its failures in the long run. But the scary part is that these solutions aren't, the 3-year backlog and, say, water supply. Those are not things that can be fixed very quickly. The Mkomazi Dam, which has been touted as the solution to the water issues, is 3 years delayed and still has to be built at an approximate cost, I think it's of 20 billion rand. So that is also delayed. But now there are quicker solutions to put in place. Obviously, it costs money, but there are quicker solutions that we can put in place to try and augment the situation at the moment and stabilize it. Whether it's tapping into groundwater or whether it is desalination, both of these come at a cost, but they do give the city of Durban and the coastal area some reprieve. But in the long term, what we need to do is start to move away from wasteful expenditure, which the city of Durban has billions of rands worth, and move towards a situation where we're focusing on the core mandate of local government, and that is basic infrastructure.
And finally, Chris, are we likely to see through your efforts, hopefully, introduction of some form of police security or detail in the area of Verulam, particularly in those areas where people are collecting water? I mean, we had this conversation, and you narrated to us the ordeal that the Naidu family and certainly other members of that community are going through, just being able to go to a place to get some water, and you have to leave yourself in because you could be mugged or robbed in the process.
So yes, the issue is twofold here. So what we're finding now is the emergence of what they're calling water tanker mafias. And that creates its own issues. So people have seen a gap in the market, if you want to call it that, and they've established these community-based water tanker supply schemes where municipal water tankers are being blocked from coming in, and people are taking advantage of the fact that people are without water and are not charging them via water tankers. We find that water tanker drivers are being limited to times in the morning and times in the afternoon. They are no longer evening supply because of threat to the trucks as well as to the drivers. So this is now fast becoming sort of mafia-run city. But yes, to answer your question, what our caucus in eThekwini will be and has been doing is calling for an increased security around the provision of these services. We saw it start during the strike, where we asked that security, whether it is private security provided by the city or Metro Police, escort the water tankers to various areas. Again, this is not a sustainable solution. We need water back in the taps. At the end of the day, we need our police to be protecting our communities from criminals and not water tankers when water should be flowing in the taps.